Hi everybody, Kat here. Thanks for joining me today. If you tuned into my last video about neutral tint and maybe using it as an underpainting, this is kind of related. I wanted to paint these oranges and doing an underpainting using a complementary color. And so this can apply to any color, but I chose this painting because it's mostly all orange and the complementary color of orange is blue. We're going to start with the underpainting because that's what an underpainting is. It's your first layer of paint. Now I chose ultramarine blue because the complementary color of orange is blue. So they neutralize each other. So it's often a nice idea to use them as shadows, and using it as an underpainting is also kind of interesting. So I wanted you to see the effects of that. So I will leave the picture of the oranges up at the top of the screen here somewhere. And I'm going to get started with my underpainting. Okay, I think it goes more like that, my painting, my drawing. I will, this drawing, I think it's from Pixabay. It's a free image. So I'm working, this is kind of from the tube today. So various degrees of watered downness. All right, so I'm going to start with my big orange here, and it's kind of puckered around here. So I'm going to, and they're quite evident. These lines are very, very, oh, before we do this, I forgot to tell you that I wrap, because skin on an orange is mottled, I chose this cheapy paper that also looks like orange peel. And the highlights on the orange I made with rolled up plastic like saran wrap, and I dipped it very gently into my masking fluid, and I just dabbed it very gently. If you don't have masking fluid or you don't want to do that, you can always do the whites, your highlights later. Now back to the where we started. So I'm just going to paint in the smaller, finer, dark areas first, and then I'll get to the larger, softer shadows in the next step. Now to get to the actual shadows. I'm going to take a fairly watered down blue, and I'm going to wet a second brush so that I can do some softening as I go along. So the light is coming from here. So everything on this orange that's farther away from that light is going to get darker and darker. And right here, I see quite a dark little spot. I'm going to try to, I didn't wet that enough. I'm going to try to just keep that nice and soft. In fact, because this is inexpensive paper, I think I'm going to wet the spot first before I put in the shadow. And this one is kind of casting a shadow on this one. So it's pretty deep here. Maybe I'll use this brush. I've been trying to paint loose lately. I've been trying to stay away from all these details that you get caught up in and causes stress. The reason I started this YouTube channel was kind of a hobby. I needed something in my life. My husband was diagnosed with MS, and it's been a rough couple of years. And I just wanted to share with people how I dealt with some stress in my life, and it caught on, and I really just wanted to help someone who's also looking for something to, that's all your own, something that you derive pleasure from, and it doesn't belong to anybody else. It's just yours. So, all that to say, I just like to share what I've learned with you. I don't profess to be a professional or Now this one is under these two oranges here. So, whoop. Oh boy. So I'm just gonna wet in here a bit first. And we're gonna come around here, we're gonna come around here. Now, light does hit this orange, just not quite back here as much because these two oranges are sort of on top of it. So we just want to see what this blue does for the underpainting, just to see if it actually makes a difference in your painting, if you like painting that way. Now I did alter the drawing a little bit, so you can draw it exactly the same way. My first video I did the whole box of oranges, but it was just too much. The video was so long and I don't want to bore you. So okay, so that's one. Now in watercolor, we usually go from light to dark. So that's why doing an underpainting can be a little interesting, because you're putting, this isn't exactly dark, but you're putting down some of your darker values before you've put your light. Now I chose ultramarine blue. And the reason is because when I mixed the ultramarine blue with this particular orange that I'm using, it's called Pyrrole Orange. That's going to be the main orange that I use. It makes a really nice sort of neutral gray. Some oranges and some blues, when you mix them together, they're going to turn green. And I didn't want that greeny look. So this last one, so the lighter the shadow, the less blue you put on. At least that's my attempt. This is faded quite a bit, so I'm going to see if I can drop a little bit in here. It's just very, very, very faint. The rest we could do with the actual color of the orange. This is just to get a head start, and I wanted to see what you thought about it, see if you're going to try it or not. So let's let this dry. I'll fix this edge, it's a little much. Let this dry and I'll be right back. Okay, now that everything's nice and dry, I'm going to put in the lightest part of the orange. So not the highlights, the ultra white stuff that we masked out or you're going to use white paint on, but the parts of the orange where the light is hitting and it alters the intensity of the actual orange. So you can see that the orange is much deeper color here. And here it's more like a yellow. So I have a yellow in my palette that's called Indian Yellow. And it's a very warm yellow. So it already leans towards the orange. And I'm going to take a little bit of my Pyrrole Orange, which is the main color of my oranges. And I'm going to water that down. And I'm just going to paint the lighter part of the oranges here, just up at the top, or where I see that. Next, I'll add the pyrrole orange and work it into that lighter area, making sure I have a soft transition. I don't want any hard lines here. It's a very intense color, so I'm going to get them to marry a little bit here and come right over the area where you did your underpainting. And without having to mix any colors on the side, you have your natural shadows there. If you're using better paper, because this is really truly very cheap paper, your blending, you'll have a little bit more grace with your blending and you won't have to be as careful. I really have to be careful how many times I stroke this paper because it does kind of, you'll see in a second what happens to it. So I'm going to re-wet it all just very gently so that I don't disturb what I already have there. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to put in some orange and I'm going to butt it right up against the lighter part. And this side is still lighter. And this part is quite dark. And look at that, we have shadows already there for us. You still would intensify your color though over it, because even though the blue is already there providing you with your darker shadows, the orange is also more intensified because the light isn't washing it out. I'm going to do this because I don't want this to bleed into this really. And so I'll do this one. Ultramarine blue is a magical color. I just wish it wasn't granulating, because the kind of paintings that I do, I don't often, like in my personal time, I do a lot of paintings, like portrait paintings, and I do animals and stuff, and sometimes I really don't want granulation, because on a person the granulating shadow can look like a 5 o'clock shadow on their face. But this color is magical. It'll do anything you want it to do. It mixes with everything so perfectly. It's a wonder to me how this paint is so magical. Okay. Okay. This is pretty dry. Before I continue with anything else, I'm just using, this is like a lemon yellow. This is called Hansa. So this is a cool yellow. There. And I'm just going to put in the little bud stems, whatever you call them. The stems, the little bud things. You can add a little bit of yellow into them if they're still too dark. Okay, so back to my oranges. So now I'm going to introduce a cooler orange. If you don't have one, you would take a cool yellow, like lemon yellow, and you would take a red like scarlet. That scarlet to me is on the cooler side, but it's also, it could pass for a warm red. So when I say a cool red, it usually leans on the pink side. And when I say a warm red, it leans on the orange side. So scarlet is right there smack in the middle. It's nice. It's a nice true red to me. So I'm going to take my cooler orange, Paranone orange, this one is called. And I'm going to go over, and I went right over that. Oops, I need a bit more water than that. And I'm going to put it over my shadowed areas, because shadows always look a little bit more natural when they're cool. They get cool colors, push things backward. I could fix this part after. And then if you're not, this is the time, especially on this cheapy paper, this is the time to fix the rest of your orange, because you're not going to get one more layer out of this, I don't think. I think I'm pushing it here. So I'm going to go in with my Paranone orange and some Indian yellow. Get a nice, beautiful, deep orange going, and just going to sort of work that in there like that. So I'm not covering the cool that I just put down, but I'm just adding, I'm just kind of trying to get it to blend. Gonna go over, so it's like a little map. You know exactly where to put it, because that's where your ultramarine blue shadows were. Now these oranges are not sitting in a bowl. The background color that I'm going to put in is just for visual interest. It's a little dark, I think. I think it's a little dark. I could have gone even lighter, and I didn't think I went dark enough with the ultramarine. But had I done this on better paper, maybe I would have had the right amount. Who knows? I'll only know if I paint it again, and I'm not doing that. This is the third time and the final time. And for the final step, I will fix these after, but for the major part here, I'm going to take my ultramarine blue for the background, but I really want it to be deeper. So the opposite color that I've used here, so we've used yellow and red and orange, right? All those three colors. So the opposite of those would be purple, green, and blue. And I think if you used any one of those colors or a combination of them, your painting would sing. I mixed a blue and a green, and look at the beautiful contrast between the orange and the background here. And as I said, this is not a bowl, although if you want to put it in a bowl, you can put them in a basket. You can just, I just wanted this to be like a decorative background. Okay, to that I'm going to add a little bit of my neutral tint. If you don't have that, just add a tiny bit of black to your color. It's just to darken it a slight bit. And I'm going to go around these, whatever you call them. Comme ça. Now what I want to do, and this is kind of bold and you have to be a little bit brave, but on the side of the oranges, where, because the light is coming from kind of here, so I am going to soften those dark edges here. I might have waited a bit too long, and I want those edges to run into the orange, so I'm just going to get a bit more color because I did wait too long. And this edge will be sharp because that's where the light is. So there we go. I'll try and put some more color in here. So it'll just very gently bleed up into there. The same with this over here. Just want to soften those edges. So you see, just softening where you know the light isn't hitting. Soften here. Soften there. So the hard edges are where the light is. There. Okay, and when you're certain that everything is nice and dry, then you can go in and remove your I don't know, I didn't remember doing that, but that's okay, we can fix that. Going in with an extremely watery, orangey, yellowy color. Just very, that one has to be a bit more than toned down. Just dabbing. Because if you leave them stark white, they do look a little strange. They can look a little bit much. Now this one, who knows what I did here? I'm going to try and fill it in as best I can. I think that looks better. And I'm just dabbing with a bit of the darker pigmented orange, just dabbing around the highlights. Because contrast makes things stand out. So if you want your highlight to stand out, you put it beside something dark. If you were going to make this a bowl, what you would do is you would darken the inside so that the bowl looks lighter on the upper side because it's rounded. So I'll show you that quickly before we sign off. If you have neutral tint, just add it to that bluey gray color that you made. If you don't, then add black to it. There. So you would put it in right in there. In the deepest, darkest depths of the bowl. And then soften that out. I'll use a bit of the blue to soften it out. Just like that. Go around making more contrast if you like that look. You can also add a little bit of white highlights on here if you like. But I'm going to call that done. So I just wanted to show you what I could do, what you can do with an underpainting with a complementary color. So you don't have to do orange and blue. You can do something with red and green or yellow and purple. And if you do decide to try and you want to share your work, you can consider joining the Facebook group. The link is in the description below. And we only have a few members, but you know, we have to start somewhere. So if you like this video, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. Happy watercoloring. Bye bye.